Hello there, McKnox here, and welcome back to my channel. If you clicked on today's video, then you're looking to make this adorable little street owl. Don't feel intimidated by this project. I'm going to walk you through every step of it. But before we get started, why don't you hit like, subscribe, and share, and never miss a video. And with that being said, let's get started. For this project today, I'm going to be using a 3.5mm hook because I'm using a 4-weight yarn. Whenever making amigurumi, I always use a hook that is 0.5mm smaller than my yarn weight to make tighter stitches. Then of course the usual, scissors, tapestry needle, stuffing, a stuffing stick if you need it. I'm also using a pair of large eye pins with their eye backs of course. For yarn, I'll be using a dark brown for my primary color, a beige for the plumage and around the eyes, white for the eyes, and a gold for my beak and feet. You can of course use whatever colors you wish. Once you have your supplies, grab your hook and let's get started. Before making the head, we'll be making the eyes because we're going to sew these on before we close the body. So grab your white yarn and make a magic circle and chain 1. When it comes to making the magic circle, use whatever method is easiest for you. Now put 10 double crochet into your circle. After you're done and you've closed it up, skip that chain 1 and push your hook into the top of that double crochet. Now grab your secondary color and attach it to your hook and pull it through and chain 1. Now in the back loop of your first stitch, make a half double crochet. And the next 4 stitches, go into the back loop and make a half double crochet. For the last 5 stitches, go through both loops and make a half double crochet. Now, I'm back at the start here. I'm going to skip over that chain 1 and I'm going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet. Then I'm going to come down to this loop right here and I'm going to slip stitch into it. I'm going to chain 1 and then go back in, make a single crochet. In the next 3 loops, make a half double crochet. And in the last loop, make a single crochet. Now, looking for the next stitch, I'm going to slip stitch into it, cut that yarn, leaving a long tail for sewing, and fasten off. And there's your eye. So don't worry about this right here. When we sew the eye on, we'll be sewing through the eyelid and the rim of the eye itself. Okay, so now we're moving on to the head. Grabbing my brown, I'm going to start by making a magic circle of 6 single crochet. For the next round, I'm going to put 2 single crochet into every stitch. You should now have 12 stitches. Insert your stitch marker and move it at the end of each round. Increasing from 12 to 18, I'm going to start by putting a single crochet into the first stitch and then increase into the next. Repeat this 5 more times and you should have 18 stitches. For this round, I'm increasing from 18 to 24, so start with 2 single crochet and then make an increase. Repeat this 5 more times and you'll have 24 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a moment. I'm going to remove my stitch marker and my hook. Then, threading the inside tail to my tapestry needle, I'm going to flip over my work. I'm going to find the center of my work and then I'm going to find a back loop right next to it. I'm going to push my needle through that loop, cross over to another one, and gently tug it through. Then I'm going to come around, find another back loop, start to gently push through, but I'm not going to go all the way. Instead, I'm going to push my needle through this loop I made, and then push down, and then cut the tail short. So what this does is it helps to keep the middle of our magic circle from gaping open as we stuff our project. Alright, let's continue. Reinserting my stitch marker and my hook, I'm going to increase this round from 24 to 30. So start by making 3 single crochet and then increase. Repeat this 5 more times back to the end of the round. For our last round of increasing, I'm going to start with 4 single crochet and then make an increase. Repeat this to the end of the round and you should have 36 stitches. From this point, I'm just going to put a single crochet into every stitch around for 6 rounds. Make sure to move your stitch marker at the end of every round. And when you're done, I'll meet you there. Alright, so this round, we're decreasing from 36 to 32. And I'm going to start with my decrease. And when I make a decrease when making amigurumi, I make an invisible decrease. I start by going into the front loop of that first stitch, but then I rotate my hook and I push into the front loop of the next stitch, grab that yarn and pull it through those loops, yarn over and pull through 2. And that is how you make an invisible decrease. Now you can use whatever way works for you, but this is how I will be making my decreases. From here, make 7 single crochet. And you're just going to repeat these steps 3 more times. Decrease, 7 single crochet. And at the end of the round, you will have 32 stitches. Move your stitch marker. Alright, for this round, we'll be making the plumage. Start by making 3 single crochet. Then, we're going to make another single crochet, but we're going to do a color swap. To make a color swap, start by going in, yarn over and pull up, but stop there. Grab that secondary color, attach it to your hook, and pull it through those 2 loops to complete your single crochet. From here, we're going to be making what is called a 3 single crochet cluster. Start by going into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up, make sure you have tension on your hook, yarn over and pull through 1 loop. Go back in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, you should have 3 on your hook. One last time, go back in, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. And this is how you make a 3 single crochet cluster. You want to go back and you want to cut your main color, and you want to take these 2 tails and you want to knot them very tightly together so that the stitch on the outside of your work isn't loose. Once you've done that, cut them short. Now, continue on and make 10 more of these. Now that I've made my 11 clusters, I'm going to do 1 more, except that I'll be making a color change. So make your cluster like normal, but before you yarn over and pull through those 4 loops, attach your main color again and use it to finish your cluster. Give those yarn tails a good tug. Now, just make a single crochet back to the start of the round. And don't forget to cut your secondary color and knot those tails together. Now, you're just going to repeat these steps for the next 4 rounds, making sure to very tightly knot these tails every time you make a color swap. And be certain to move your stitch marker at the end of each round as well. I'll meet you when you're done. This round, we're going to start by decreasing. So, make a normal decrease, and then make 3 single crochet. But we're going to do a color swap on the third one. From here, make a cluster in the next 3 stitches. Then we'll make a cluster decrease. Go into the stitch, pull up a loop, and pull through 1. Go back in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop. Now take your hook and go into the next stitch. Pull up the yarn over, pull through 1 loop, yarn over, and pull through all 4 loops. And that's how you make a cluster decrease. Follow this up with 5 more clusters. But on the last one, we're doing a color swap. Now that we have our primary color again, make a single crochet. Then a decrease. Then 6 single crochet and another decrease. Finish your round with 6 single crochet. You should have 28 stitches. Okay, so before we go any further, we're going to sew our eyes on. I'm going to line my eye up with about the 3rd stitch of the stomach here. I'm going to take these 3 yarn tails and thread them onto my needle. I'm going to push them down into my head, into the inside of my project, and I'm going to tightly knot them together. Once you've done that, cut them short. And then, taking this long tail, I'm going to thread it onto my needle and position my eye, and I'm going to start sewing it on just a couple of stitches. Before I get too far though, I want to insert my eye pin, and I'm not going to insert it into the middle. Instead, I'm going to insert it slightly off to the side here. When I go and push it into the head, you're going to see that it kind of barely sticks out. It can be really hard sometimes to snap the eye back on here because you're going through 2 layers of yarn. It might be useful for you to put super glue into the eye back when you put it on. Just make sure that it's on there firmly. Then, throwing that long tail onto my needle, I'm going to start sewing this eye on. So I'm going to come up and through the body and into the eye, round back around, and back down. When it comes to sewing the eyelid, I'm going to go through the rim of the eye and through the base of that stitch of my eyelid, and then come over to the next one, go through the base again, down into the rim, and then down into the head. And I'm just going to repeat these steps until my eye is firmly sewn on. Hide your yarn tail in the back. Then sew your second eye on. Now, if your eyes don't quite line up with either side of the stomach here, like mine don't worry about that. When we sew the wings on, they're going to be partly covering the stomach anyways. This is going to be our last round of color swaps. Start with making 5 single crochet, but you're going to color change on the last one. Then, make a cluster decrease. After this, make 5 more clusters, then another cluster decrease, but swap colors once more. With your primary color, make 5 single crochet, and then a decrease. Repeat this one more time, and at the end of the round, you should have 24 stitches. Okay, so now we're decreasing to 18 stitches. Start with a decrease, and then make 2 single crochet. Repeat this 5 more times to the end of the round. At this point, you want to start stuffing your project, but be careful not to overstuff it. I overstuffed mine, and it made it very difficult to work on my project later, so I had to remove some of the stuffing. Make sure that you get it down deep into the head and around the sides. I know your project looks a little strange in the back right here, but don't worry about that. This round, we're going to start with a decrease, and then make a single crochet. Repeat this 5 more times. Add more stuffing as you go, using a stuffing stick if need be. For our last round, we're just making 6 decreases. If you have trouble making 6, that's okay, just do the best you can. When you're done, fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. I'm going to thread that tail onto my needle, and I'm going to sew up the hole here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this first stitch. I'm going to push my needle into the front loop of the next one and give it a little tug. And then repeat this, crisscrossing back and forth until the hole is closed. Alright, so let's move on to making the wings. And I'm going to start with my primary color and make a magic circle of 4 single crochet. I'm going to cross over into that first stitch and make an increase. Now this can be a little bit difficult, so have some patience. In the next stitch, make a single crochet. Increase into the third one, and then put a single crochet into the last. For this next round, just put a single crochet into all 6 stitches. For this round, I'm starting with an increase, and then make 2 single crochet. Then another increase, and another 2 single crochet. For this next round, just put a single crochet into all 8 stitches. Increasing from 8 to 10, start with 3 single crochet, then an increase, 3 single crochet, and another increase. This round, we're increasing from 10 to 12. Start by making 4 single crochet, then an increase, another 4 single crochet, and end with an increase. For this round, I'm just going to put a single crochet into every stitch. Increasing from 12 to 14, start by making 5 single crochet, then an increase, another 5 single crochet, and then another increase. For this round, just put a single crochet into every stitch. Increasing from 14 to 16, start with 6 single crochet, then an increase, another 6 single crochet, and then finish with an increase. For this round, start with 7 single crochet and then an increase, another 7 single crochet, and then end with an increase. You should have 18 stitches. Increasing to 20 stitches, start with 9 single crochet and then an increase, and do this one more time. For the next 3 rounds, just put a single crochet into every stitch. However, stop before making the last stitch of your 3rd round. I'll meet you there. At that last stitch, we're going to be swapping colors again. Now chain 1. Put an increase into the 1st stitch. Then a single crochet into the next 8, followed by another increase. Now we're going to put a 3 single crochet cluster into the next 10 stitches. At the end of the round, you're going to skip that chain 1 and slip stitch into that 1st single crochet that you made. For this round, start by putting a single crochet into that stitch that we're coming out of. Then put a single crochet into the next 11 stitches. Follow this up with a cluster into the last 10. You should have 22 stitches. Count your stitches as you work because it is very easy to end up with an extra stitch. For this round, start with a single crochet decrease. Then make 8 single crochet. And then another decrease. But from this point forward, we're going to change the way that we make clusters. So instead of making a 3 single crochet cluster, we're making a 2 single crochet cluster. Go in, grab the yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 1 loop, go in again, grab the yarn and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 1 loop, but instead of going in a 3rd time, we're going to yarn over and pull through all loops. From here on, this is how you will be making the clusters. So make 9 more of these. For this next round, we're going to start with a decrease again. Then make 2 single crochet, followed by another decrease, and another 2 single crochet. Now our next decrease is over a single crochet and a cluster. Just make a normal single crochet decrease. Now make a 2 single crochet cluster into your next 2 stitches. Then we're going to make a cluster decrease. Start by going into that 1st stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over and pull through a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now make a cluster into the next 2 stitches. Followed by another cluster decrease, and then finish this round with 2 more clusters. You should have 15 stitches. So it's going to get a little difficult to work into your stitches as our project grows smaller, but just be patient and go slowly. This round, start with a decrease, then make a single crochet, followed by another decrease, and then another single crochet. Decrease again. Our next stitch is a cluster. Followed by a cluster decrease, another cluster, and then another cluster decrease, and end with a cluster. Now this next round can be really difficult, so if you can't make all the decreases, that's okay. Start by making 3 regular decreases, and then make 2 cluster decreases. As you can see, it gets more difficult as you go along, so if you can't make all 5 decreases, that's alright. Just fasten off where you can and leave a long tail for sewing. It's really not going to be noticeable. When you're done, thread the tail onto your tapestry needle and we're going to close up the center. And once that's complete, make a second wing. Now, to sew the wings on, you're going to take that long tail from where we fastened off and you're going to thread it onto your needle. I'm going to line the wing up along the edge of my eye here. As I said, this wing is going to be covering up part of your stomach, so don't worry if your eyes don't line up symmetrically. So I'm just going to push into the corner of my next stitch and down into the body. Come up a couple stitches over, through the body and the wing. Then round back around, down through the wing, and into the body. I'm just going to repeat these steps, attaching this wing on with a whip sewing method. And I'm not going to attach the whole thing, I'm just going to do it right here where the secondary color changes. Once you've sewn both wings on, bring the tails together and hide them inside the body. Alright, so now we're going to make the tail. Start by chaining 12. Then, skip the first 2 chains and slip stitch into the third. Then, make 9 single crochet. At the end of the row, chain 1 and turn. Into the back loops of the next 6 stitches, make a single crochet. Now chain 6 and turn your work again. Skip those first 2 chains and slip stitch into the third. Then make 9 single crochet. Chain 1 and turn again. In the back loops of the next 6 stitches, make a single crochet. Chain 6 again, turn your work and skip the first 2 chains, slip stitch into the third one, and then make 9 single crochet. At the end of the row, fasten off and leave a very long tail. Now, if you want to make the tail a bit stiffer, I highly recommend making a second one of these. Then, taking them together and lining them up, use one of those long tails and sew the edges of the 2 pieces together using the whip method. Once you've done that, flip your owl over, find the center here in the back, and start sewing the tail on. Now you can either sew it on straight or you can do it in an arc, whatever works for you. Once that's finished, don't hide your yarn tails just yet. Instead, take your 2 wing points and bring them around to the back, crossing one over the other. And I'm going to use this yarn tail to come up through the body, through one wing, and then the second one. and then back down 1 stitch over, going through all 3 pieces. And I'm going to do this a few times just to pin these wings into place. Don't pull too hard on your yarn or you're going to warp your project a bit. When I'm done, I'll bring my yarn tails together and knot and hide them inside my body. Okay, so now we're going to go on to making the head tufts. Fun fact, these are actually called plumicorns. So I'm going to take my primary color and I'm going to chain 7. Skip that first chain and slip stitch into the next one. Then make 5 single crochet. At the end of the row, chain 1 and turn my work. Make a single crochet into the next 3 stitches. Chain 2, turn my work once more, skip the next chain and put a slip stitch into the second. Then make 3 single crochet. Fasten off. So to sew the tufts on, I'm going to line them up about here at an angle, and I'll be using a looping method to sew them on to make it look more seamless. If you only sew on the edging right here, this will allow you to play with the tufts positioning. You can either lay them flat or sit them up. When you're done sewing them on, knot and hide the yarn tails. Alright, so to make the feet, I'm going to take my gold and I'm going to make a magic circle of 6 single crochet. For this next round, I'm going to put 2 single crochet into every stitch. I should have 12 stitches. And insert your stitch marker. For this round, I'm going to start by making 2 single crochet and then increase. Repeat this 3 more times and you should have 16 stitches at the end. For the next 2 rounds, I'm just putting a single crochet into every stitch. This round, we're going to decrease from 16 to 14. Start with a decrease, and then make 6 single crochet. Decrease again, and then another 6 single crochet. For our last round, start by making 5 single crochet, and then a decrease. 5 single crochet, and decrease again. Fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. So throwing that tail onto my needle, I'm going to flatten my piece at the corner here where I fastened off, and I'm just going to weave this tail in and out through these stitches on either side. When I get to my last stitch, I'm going to come back through the second one again. I'm going to take the yarn and I'm going to curve it up over the side of the foot here, and then push back into that same stitch that I'm coming out of. I'm going to gently but firmly tug on that yarn, and this will create an indent that will start to form our toes. Once I'm satisfied, I'm going to take that needle, I'm going to loop around to the other side of that stitch, and I'm going to pull it through tightly, and this will help to secure it. Then weave your tail back and forth until you get to the second to last stitch on the other side, and repeat these steps to make your other toe. Now make 2 of these. So I'm going to be using this round here where I stopped making my color swaps as the guide to where I should sew my feet on. This will help to keep my owl level so that he doesn't flop over. Once you're done, knot and hide your yarn tails. Alright, so we're going to finish up with the beak. Now, I really recommend using the chain method for this rather than the magic circle. I'm going to take my gold and I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to put 3 single crochet into that second chain. Now I'm going to cross over to this first stitch. I know this can be a little bit difficult, and I'm going to put an increase into that stitch. Just have a little patience. And to the next 2 stitches, I'm going to make a single crochet. And the one after, I'm going to make an increase. And then I'm going to finish with a single crochet into the next 3. Fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. And this beak should fit nicely in between my 2 eyes here. Once I've sewn that on, I'm going to hide my yarn tail. Alright, so that's it. That's the owl. You could definitely have some fun with this project and make them different colors. I think he came out really cute. Alright, let's get back to the table. And that's it. That's the video. So if you enjoyed this project and you want to see more, then don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what else you'd like to see. And while you're at it, why don't you go and check out some of my other videos. I think you might find this one in particular very interesting. And with that being said, this has been McKnox. I'll see you soon.